The great question from an economic point of view is whether or not, what are the means that lead to the ever greater perfection of this human-built world? And traditionally, there are two ways to understand the means by which this comes about. One is the theory of collective innovation, and the other is the theory of individual innovation. I would like to talk about both those points of view. In the collective view, the idea is that the government or society at large has to be responsible for making great innovations. This view is still with us whenever you hear presidents, whether it's Obama or Bush or anybody else, talking about the need to invest as a society in something. Invest in large-scale infrastructure. You know, in World War II, the government that fought the war built the bomb. You know, so there's a great explosion in technological advance, and it comes about collectively. That we need to invest in arts and sciences, or whatever the case may be. The problem with that method of collective innovation is that there's really no market test to find out whether or not that's a good use of social resources or not. In the market economy, there's constantly a test. In the collective economy of government-built things, there is no test to find out if the resources are being used efficiently or not. One example that people point to as a great case of collective entrepreneurship would be the invention of the internet, which everybody knows was built by the government. Well, it was built by the government, but the government never did anything with it. It was private enterprise that turned it into a productive, useful thing for us. Government technology can come too soon, it can come too late. Quite often, government constantly funds old technologies, or it funds them too soon before society is ready for them. And let's be clear about technology. It has to come around at the right time. Let's say you lived in the age of the scribe, and a monk walked in and said to the scribe, listen, I've got a great new innovation. It's called one-click ordering. Well, what would anybody be able to do with a one-click method of ordering things on the internet in the age of the scribe, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? So it's not just about the ideas or the notion. It's about its usability and its economic viability. Now, the other theory of innovation is that it's entirely individual and it's about great individuals. I think we have to be careful about this interpretation as well. This theory of entrepreneurship, or the theory of innovation and development, that it all comes down to the great individuals and their great ideas, really developed in the Gilded Age in the late 19th century, when there was a new class of capitalists that came along that wanted to replace the traditional view that the great figures in human history were politicians and war makers, and wanted to replace it with a view that the industrial captains of industry were really the people we need to be celebrating. I have no problem with that, but it led to certain exaggerations. And let me just give you a couple of cases in point. I think we're all taught in school that Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. I think I was taught that. And I had a vision of everybody taking these lumps of cotton I grew up in Texas, so you take the lump of cotton off the plant there and sort of have to pick out the seed all the time, and that's the way people dealt with cotton until the great Eli Whitney genius came along, who invented a machine where you could just sort of stuff the cotton in the machine, it spat out the seeds on one end, and then out came the cloth or whatever. I don't know what the idea was. Well, you know, if you look at the details of this history, it turns out this is an amazing myth. It turns out cotton ginning has been around since about the 5th century. And with great improvements and innovations made from the 12th to the 14th century, and long before Eli Whitney, all throughout the American South, cotton was always ginned, usually with roller pins or some other machine. And there have been continual innovations throughout history. It wasn't just that Eli Whitney came along with one brilliant idea and changed history. No, it's not at all true. What happened is that Eli Whitney took an existing machine, and thanks to a suggestion made to him by a friend of his, who was a woman, by the way, he added a small brush technique to the machine. Why we know about Eli Whitney is versus everybody else involved in the long 2,000-year process of coming up with the modern cotton gin is that he got to the patent office first before anybody else did, and then turned around and used his patent to beat up all the competition, and went around the South suing everybody who was ginning cotton, claiming that they owed him money. Okay, so this is the truth about our friend Eli Whitney. A similar story can be told about Alexander Graham Bell, who did not invent the telephone, and those rotten Wright brothers. I'm just fed up with hearing about the Wright brothers. The evil Wright brothers, you know, they were running a little scam outfit that was really just I mean, they paid more lawyers than they did anybody else, and their goal was to, of course, to get the first patent, you know, on the first in flight. There were about 20 competitors for the title first in flight. They made one little improvement in the wing, raced to the patent office, and then demanded that the U.S. government buy their airplane, and spent the next 15 years suing everybody who was really trying to make real improvements in the airplane and succeeding. So by the time World War I rolled around, the U.S. was so backward in its air technology that we had to buy our planes from France, you know, that didn't actually have any patents on airplanes, on flying technology. So fortunately, during World War I, U.S. government suspended patent enforcement on the airplane, and then advances could be made. So anyway, my point is that the history of innovation is not really the history of great men or great women doing amazing things out of nowhere. You know, one minute everybody's talking on like cups of strings, and then Alexander Graham Bell invents this, you know, the iPod or whatever, I don't know, but I mean, it doesn't happen like that. What happens is a series of small steps. And this is the way it happens in our world today. You know, every day you go online, you find some small improvement. Somebody takes an existing technology, improves it just slightly, a little bit, and markets it. In order to understand how that works, though, you need to understand something about the way the process of market competition works. And it works like this. An entrepreneur sees a need. For example, in Auburn, for many years, we didn't have any donut shops. So one guy opens up a donut shop right over here in college, and he's making enormous profits with this donut shop. I mean, you can tell it. You go in there, and, you know, I talk to him all the time, you know, how much do you make by selling that 50-cent donut? Well, you know, I don't know, it cost me about 10 cents to make. Okay, he's making 40 cents a donut, but he's still got to pay people, got to pay taxes. Nonetheless, the profits are there. This serves as a signal to other possible entrepreneurs in town that that this is a profitable enterprise. That signal, that profit signal, is like broadcasting out to every entrepreneur, every owner of capital in Auburn. Look, this is a possible way that you can make money by selling donuts. So the guy, so a possible entrepreneur goes into the donut shop and examines how they do things, and he's over there taking mental pictures, you know, of everything he sees. And so he copies the behavior of the donut shop down there. It's a process of emulation. And I hope you write down that word, emulation, because this is the essence of entrepreneurship. This is how it begins. It begins with copying what other people are doing. But it's not just enough just to copy precisely what the person is doing. What you have to do is improve it just slightly, because you have to get the customers to come to you as opposed to him. All right? Or your innovation may consist of better marketing, promoting of the donuts in a better way than the other guy did, so you get ever more customers. Or could it consist of saving in the costs associated with donut making? Whatever it is, you've got to make an improvement on the existing profitable enterprise down here. Okay, so you open up your business, you've made the improvement, you've reduced costs, you've made the donuts even better tasting, you've got a better process for making them, you've rented a spot that has lower rents, possibly. Okay, so then what happens? You get customers, and that guy's losing customers, his profitability goes down, or he has to compete with you. Adopt new technologies, new designs, cut costs, whatever the case may be. It's going to reduce his profit margins. So on one hand, the guy over here is this profitable, you've opened up your shop, you're becoming this profitable, but look, his profits begin to go down, right? All through this process of emulation first and competition second. Then a third donut shop opens up. Everybody's profits are pushed further and further down. This is the way the process works. In the competitive market process, everybody copies everybody else and improves just slightly on the margin. Just a little bit, enough to solicit more traffic, customer contact with himself, and profits are eventually driven down to what level? In an ideal world, if you construct this thing out, profits are driven down to zero. And I always like to tell people this as a way of addressing some of the socialists who are under the impression that capitalism is a big conspiracy to protect the rights of profit makers. It strikes me that capitalism is nothing but a gigantic conspiracy to reduce all profits in the world to zero. It's a disaster for producers. You have to constantly stay alert and constantly innovate, or else you die. That's the way the truth of the market works. Now, some of you are probably going to be looking into business in the future, and I would urge you as you look into this, not to try to be a Wright brothers, one of the Wright brothers, or an Eli Whitney, or an Alexander Graham Bell, or these other guys, but rather to look for successful behaviors in the market, emulate them, copy them, and improve them just slightly. That's how people make money in a market economy, through slight improvements on the margin. It's true in our day, and it was true in the 12th century. It was true all the way back to the beginning of time. So I reject this model that entrepreneurship is collective, or that innovation occurs collectively, and neither does it occur through just great men. It occurs through people just like yourselves who are out there just trying to improve the world a little bit at a time. But look what this depends on most fundamentally. It depends on the freedom to save and build capital. It depends on the freedom to try and fail, since not every experiment in the business world is successful. Far more businesses fail than succeed. And you need the freedom to constantly improve without interventions like high regulations or patents or other restrictions on what people can and cannot do. You need a free flow of information, precisely so that people can learn from each other and emulate the success of other people. That's the way we are going to progress as a society. You notice that government does none of these things. It's only markets that do this. So my final advice to you in this short talk is that as you pursue your lives, I hope that you all at some point go to work for a small producer of some sort, so you can get a picture of what it's like to be on the other side of the aisle. It can drive you crazy. I know my children hate to go shopping with me because I'll walk into something like Dick's Sporting Goods over here in Tigertown, and I open the door and I'm overwhelmed at the sheer volume of inventory. The inventory, and I'll start calculating costs. I'll look up that ship on the wall, and the fishing poles over there, the footballs over there, and the huge machines over there, and I think, God, this is 20 million, there's probably 30 million, there's probably $50 million worth of inventory in this place. You realize, kids, that this place had to buy all that stuff? And here we are. Who do we think we are? We can walk in, just kind of cruise around, look at these machines, and go, well, I like that, I kind of like that, I'm not going to buy anything, and walk right out of here again. And there's nothing these people can do about it. I mean, it's a terrifying thing for me to walk into a store with a large amount of inventory. But it's good for you to be able to think about the way the economy works from the point of view of the producer. If you want to be one of these producers, get good at copying, get good at emulating, get good at improving and perfecting, and never rest until the day you die. And then you will leave something spectacular for the next generation. Thank you very much.